Welcome to another episode of the Sussex Sport Weekly podcast. I'm Matt Poll and I'm joined by Brighton Hove Albion writers Derren Howard and Frankie Elliott and Crawley Town expert Mark Dunford. Brighton experienced a sobering afternoon at Villa Park on Saturday lunchtime as they were thrashed 6-1 by a rampant Aston Villa. Ollie Watkins grabbed a hat-trick as Unai Emery's side put the Seagulls to the sword. We'll pick over the bones of Brighton's heavy defeat at Villa and look ahead to this evening's Europa League fixture in Marseille. Meanwhile, Crawley Town experienced an up-and-down week. The Reds oozed confidence in Saturday's win over Sutton United, but were brought back down to earth in a disappointing defeat at Doncaster Rovers on Tuesday. We'll reflect on Crawley's week and look ahead to Saturday's blockbuster game against Wrexham. You can read all the stories we are talking about with videos and pictures online at sussexworld.co.uk/sport. But we'll start with Brighton's 6-1 defeat at Villa. Derren, I don't think many of us predicted that scoreline at the start of the weekend. Sum that up for us.
Yeah, well, one to forget, I think, in summary. It was just a very poor performance at the office. And, the work and taking charge at Brighton, really. They actually started off okay. They were sort of making some good ground down the left. Estupiñán and Matoma were linking quite well in the early stage. As soon as they went behind 1-0, it's a very good goal from Aston Villa, actually. Well worked goal. And Ollie Watkins, who always seems to play well against Brighton, was there to finish it off. He had a really, really strong game. Watkins obviously got the hat trick, but alongside that, he caused Lewis Dunk and Adam Webster quite a few problems. Lewis Dunk didn't look very good, to be honest. He was off the pace, which is very rare for Dunk. And Webster is still yet to sort of find his form really this season. So yeah, the combination of that, and then at 1-0 down. Brighton were then hit with it. There was a couple of dodgy VAR calls, which could have gone their way. The first one, when there was a player in an offside position in Jason Steele's eye line, when Watkins slotted home the second, and then with Estupiñán's own goal, there was a foul on Solly March in the build-up, which could have easily been given as a foul, but they didn't go their way. And then that was 3-0. Brighton did pull one back briefly, but they were off the pace, to be honest, for all told. So two dodgy VAR calls potentially, but it wasn't really the reason they lost. It was that midfield area, which again, De Zerbi's wrestling with that at the moment. He can't find the right combination in that midfield. And it was always going to be a problem with Caicedo and McAllister leaving. And that area of the pitch is still, against the likes of the Luton Towns, the Bournemouths, and, even Man United, dare you say at the moment, you can get away with it. But when a team is really onto you, like Aston Villa are, that is when that is why these teams pay such huge sums of money for these players like Caicedo, because they mop up so much trouble. They spot danger before it actually happens, and they protect that back line. That's why Liverpool wanted him. That's why Chelsea paid 115 million for him, and Brighton are still wrestling with that position and trying to get the best combination that they have.
Derren mentioned there, Frankie, the VAR decisions. Nicola Zaniolo was in an offside position for 2-0, and then, as you mentioned, Solly March was fouled in the build-up for the third goal. They have every right to feel aggrieved, and we'll come on to it in a minute, but VAR, what's the point?
Yeah, I mean, on a weekend where obviously VAR was under immense the biggest spotlight it's probably ever had in the Premier League, I actually think Brighton don't really have a case, to be honest, especially for the second goal. I'm never too convinced about the offside rule with the player getting in the way of the goalkeeper. It's very, very difficult to adjudicate, I think, that one. But even so, I just think it's poor goalkeeping from Jason Steele, if I'm honest. I don't think he's helped in that case either by the strength of the shot. I think if Ollie Watkins had maybe hit that with a bit more power, then there's more of an argument that Steele's sight has been taken. It's a split second decision. I think he's got plenty of time to get across his goal, regardless of where the player is standing. And I think it's just poor goalkeeping, simply put. And for the third goal, I can see why some people would say that is a foul. But again, I wouldn't say it's as clear cut as say some of the decisions going on in other Premier League games this weekend. So there's always a slight grievance and argument with decisions like that, but they're not as black and white a decision as I say as the other ones that were clearly wrong. So I think it's more down to Brighton's poor play for both of those goals rather than any refereeing decisions that cost them.
Would you agree with that, Derren?
I thought Brighton had a case in the Solly March build up. Yeah, I kind of agree with Frankie with the Jason Steele one. It wasn't a great effort from Watkins. It was kind of a scuffed effort, which Steele sort of tried to scramble across at the last minute. But I think in the build up to the Estupiñán own goal, Solly March was fouled there, and I know it happened a little way back in the process, but it was still a key moment in that move, which led to the goal. Brighton perhaps had a couple of chances to clear in the meantime. So they could have gone Brighton's way. They have done in the past, but on this occasion it didn't. But like we said, Lewis Dunk said afterwards as well, VAR wasn't the reason they lost that match. But yeah, it's been a tough week for VAR in general, really.
It has, and as Frankie mentioned, we had the whole Liverpool Spurs debacle, but are we loath to talk about it a little bit? I just hate talking about VAR. I don't know about you chaps, but
it is boring. It is boring, and I think the most important thing to stress about it, rather than anything, is that there's no intention for VAR to be used incorrectly. I think, in the midst of all this, it's been a poor week. Don't get me wrong, but the most important thing to remember in all of this is that no one is attempting to do it on purpose. No one is sat there trying to give a goal, take a goal away from Liverpool because they hate Liverpool. It's what I saw from when they released that audio. The main thing I saw, other than the sort of lack of leadership and it was a bit chaotic, is it's so quick. It's so all over. It's so much is going on that they have to deal with on top of dealing with an offside. There's no wonder they make a mistake, because it is, you forget how big a decisions these are and how quickly they have to make it. Things like this are always going to happen. And as you could tell by his reaction after he realised he made the mistake, you could hear the stress in his voice, and it's all panic stations from there. I imagine that's what it's like for every single decision. So these things will happen, basically.
Yeah, you've got to have a bit of sympathy for like Derren England as well, because can you imagine you're in the middle? I mean, if I was doing it, umpiring, and I had a third umpire, for example, and you get told after a decision's happened, all that, oh yeah, there's a mistake there. It's just got to play on your mind, isn't it? And like the next 5-10 minutes, you're going to be like, "Oh God," or "What have I done?" sort of thing, and you could miss something else, and then it just gets sort of snowballs. But it's I agree with Frankie. Yeah, no, there's no intention on getting anything wrong, but it does need looking at, and it just needs sorting out, because you can't have this every week. But I mean, all the idiots going on about, they must replay the game and that. Move on. This
I think you have to accept. There's the replays is out of the question, isn't it? Really, they talk about fixture pile-ups as it is at the moment, and then they'd always be looking for another. Every time they would be say, "Oh, we've got to replay this. We've got to read." So where do you draw the line on that? It's but one of the points I thought was quite good when they were talking about the language that the referees use to each other. They're sort of quite matey when they're talking with each other, and there was more sort of call for it to be more concise and more sort of like the rugby guys do it. It's very more official, business-like, rather than sort of a bit matey. So I thought the way
I talk to you like normally, is what you mean.
but the major issue is, which they have not yet to fix, is the reason it works so well in rugby and cricket is there is a natural pause.
It's not start.
In cricket, there's obviously the stop after the ball anyway. In rugby, a decision normally follows either the ball's gone out of play or a try. In football, they are quickly moving. Like you said, that free kick is taken less than 5 to 10 seconds after they've done the check, and they say they can't come back. It's because football moves at such velocity. Trying to get video refereeing into that was always going to be a struggle, because it's not got that staccato rhythm. So it will take years to work out, and it is taking years to work out to get video refereeing to work in a game like football. And so errors will always like this are always going to occur, but it's how you deal with it and how you make it better, which is the most important part, so it doesn't really happen again. Yeah,
it's just a shame it happened against Liverpool, because we're not going to hear about this for the next decade, are we? How Anyway, moving swiftly on, after we said we weren't going to talk about VAR. Post-match after Aston Villa, the Zerbi said Albion just aren't used to playing so many games. Derren, can the Zerbi get away with using this as an excuse, considering they've played just 7 league games and 1 League Cup game and Europa League game apiece? It doesn't seem like they've played that much at the moment.
No, that's right. I think he's managing it because of last season as well. It's still the hangover from there, where Lewis Dunk was injured at the back end of last season. Solly March was struggling as well. Pascal Gross played so many games last season. Then he got called up for the international team as well. So now he's he hasn't been seen since the Athens game as well. Plus, there's been injuries, so he's trying to. He still doesn't trust his best team. I don't think he's still working in the new players. He wants to give them an opportunity to show what they can do, and these central midfield areas as well, which we've previously spoken about. So I think De Zerbi's still not sure what quite to do with this squad of players that he has at the moment, and it's very much a work in progress as he tries to figure it out. Ideally, you have a core of sort of 7 or 8 players, and then make a few changes around that to freshen it up. But at the moment, he hasn't been able to do that. I think he's made too many changes. The situation with Jason Steele and Bart Verbruggen as well, it would drive me mad. I think if I was a goalkeeper to be in that position, and never. You can play an absolute blinder one week and you think you're in, and then you're changed out the next. And I think there's a lot of players now that could probably do with a run of games and get into a bit of a rhythm rather than being chopped and changed all the time. But yes, it's a difficult balance. I can see why he is making so many changes, because he's worried that Solly March might pull up injured again, or that Lewis Dunk is not quite fit, Adam Webster's not quite fit. But in an ideal world, that he would have a core group of 7 or 8 players. But yeah, there's a number. I think there's a number of reasons why he is doing it. Fatigue and fitness is one of them, but also I don't think he quite trusts his lineup at the moment, and he's not quite sure each game how each player is going to deliver, and whether they're going to be a 7 out of 10 or 4 out of 10 or 8 out of 10. It's been a bit more inconsistent this year.
It's an interesting point you make there, Derren. And before we move on to looking ahead to Marseille tonight, Frankie and Derren, who is Brighton and Hove Albion's best goalkeeper, Bart Verbruggen or Jason Steele?
I think Jason Steele has the experience at the moment, but I don't think it would be long before Bart Verbruggen is the number one. I remember speaking about earlier, Frankie was saying that you don't pay 16 million on a keeper to sit on a bench for Brighton. That's a big outlay. They don't pay those transfer fees lightly, and I think in the future he will be the number one. But Jason Steele is there at the moment. He did well for De Zerbi last season, and he said that I don't care, I will do whatever De Zerbi wants me to do. He changed my life last season. He turned me into Bill Budmak. So Steele will do whatever De Zerbi wants him to do, but I think going forward, Verbruggen will be the number one.
Frankie, who do you see starting tonight against Marseille out of the two of them?
I would imagine Bart Verbruggen will start, and I agree with Derren. He will eventually be, should be Brighton's number one going forward, obviously due to his age and the price tag, and what we are meant to believe is he is one of the most exciting young keepers in Europe. But I think I agree completely with Derren. When he said at the start of the season that he wanted to play with 2 number ones, that's never ever worked in football before. No. I don't know why it would work now. I think it showed on Saturday that it's not working. I think Steele played his worst game for Brighton in that 6-1 defeat. I think goalkeepers are confidence players more than any other position, and not knowing if you're going to start every week doesn't really help that. And on top of that, I think Darren's right. I think the number of changes has been absolutely crazy. I don't really question much of what De Zerbi has done so far at Brighton, but he's made nearly 39 changes in the last 4 or 5 games, which is just ridiculous. It doesn't help. No team works under that well. And I know he's probably fearing how tired they got last year when he probably made too few changes at the end of the season. But he's gone completely the other way because, as Derren alluded to, he doesn't know his best team. But I don't think it's fatigue. I mean, most Football League clubs are playing 3 times a week at the moment. We've only just started the season. I don't think it's a good enough excuse to use fatigue at the moment for professional footballers at the start before Christmas. So it's I think it's masking the fact, the fatigue thing of playing 3 times is masking the fact that he doesn't know his best team at the moment. Until he sorts that out, I think we will see results like this continually happening.
As mentioned, Marseille away tonight for Albion. Marseille began the Europa League campaign with a thrilling 3-3 draw at 10 Man Ajax a fortnight ago. How much of a special evening will this be, Frankie? And how do you see this one going for Brighton?
Well, it's a huge moment. It's a landmark achievement for Brighton to be playing their first ever European away game against, a very famous French team, one of the biggest teams in Europe. It's an amazing stadium to play in, but On the flip side of that, from judging from the reaction to the Athens game, I think it's only really a special moment when you pick up a result.
Yeah,
I think people very quickly forgot the landmark achievement thing because they were disappointed that they lost to Athens and the performance. And I think it's important Brighton remember that again tonight. As much as this is a great moment to see Brighton playing on the continent, they need a result. They need a result to make, because you never know how many times you'll play in Europe or if they will be in Europe again. You want to make the most out of the opportunity you've got. And if they don't win tonight, and it will be very, very difficult. We've seen already this week how difficult European away games are, especially in France for a team like Arsenal, who were expected to beat Lens, who are near the bottom of the Ligue 1. Marseille are a much better outfit on paper, not playing particularly brilliant at the moment, but then neither are Brighton. So it's a game that's really up in a game that both sides really need to win. Obviously, Gattuso's just been appointed manager there. He'll be desperate to pick up a victory in the Europa League after drawing against Ajax in the first game. So it's a difficult one between playing the occasion and remembering what an amazing achievement is for Brighton to get here, but not making it end too quickly. Because if you go into the two Ajax games without any points, all of a sudden you're looking down the barrel of ending bottom of the group. So it's huge. It's a big occasion, and Brighton need a victory both for their group and also for to get their season back on track. Because the last 4 or 5 games, it's all gone a bit haywire. So it's a huge night, not just in Brighton's history, but in their season.
And lastly, Derren, how are they stacked tonight in terms of injuries?
Well, they had a blow in the build-up as well. It's confirmed that Pervis Estupiñán is going to be unavailable for this one. He could be out for a month as well. He really struggled in the first half against Villa, and he was taken off at half time. Many thought it may be tactical, but it turns out he was carrying an injury. As always with De Zerbi, he's quite coy on the manner of the injuries. We've had a lot of muscular issues, sort of just being the only sort of diagnosis that we're getting at the moment. And Estupiñán's another one, as Pascal Gross, James Milner, Adam Lallana, they all have muscular issues, which are always said to be not serious. But with this one, he has actually said that he is going to be out for a while. So that is a blow for Brighton. He's the only natural left back in the team. Tarek Lamptey can play left back, and Igor Julio, who came in from Fiorentina, he's more of a centre back, a left-sided centre back, but he can play that position. So it'd be interesting to see who he selects to cover in that area. As we mentioned, James Milner, I think it might come a bit too early for him. Adam Lallana, maybe. I don't think he's going to be involved as well. But Pascal Gross, I'm hoping he'll come back into the central midfield. They've missed him since Athens game, and hopefully he'll be fit to start alongside Billy Gilmore as well.
Moving on to Crawley Town, Mark Dunford, they had a topsy-turvy week. A good win over Sutton was followed by a very underwhelming defeat at Doncaster. Sum that week up for us in Crawley Town.
Yeah, Saturday was really good. I mean, it wasn't one of their better performances, but Sutton just looked like a team who just lacks so much confidence. Bottom of the league, only won 1 game, and that game was 5-1 against Notts County opening game of the season. But since then, they haven't won a game. But yeah, Crawley dominated for the first 20 minutes. Then Sutton they let Sutton come back into it, and a couple of disallowed goals for Sutton. It could have been completely different, but then second half, as soon as Crawley got their second goal, they dominated the game like they have done this year. And they went joint top on Saturday, which was amazing. One more goal would have put them top, and Raf beat Khalil hit the post towards the end, and Scott Lindsay said he was really cross because they could have been top, and he had a go at Raf. I think it was a bit tongue in cheek, but he said he had a go at Raf. But Tuesday night. It was. We're going to come on to the team selection for Tuesday night, but it was. It seemed a little bit underwhelming, and they just seemed to lack sort of penetration or anything like they have done. I mean, Doncaster, I think they are in a false position. Yeah, they've struggled at the start of the season. But I was chatting to Chris Holt, who is one of our colleagues up north, who knows that area really well, and the sort of League Two on another podcast, and he said that the Doncaster fans, even though they were bottom for a couple of first few weeks of the season, they were not worried. They knew they were going to come back and do well. And I think Doncaster, they won't be in any kind of trouble this year. They've already beaten Gillingham, now beating Crawley, who were top in that. So it was an underwhelming defeat and an underwhelming performance, I think. But there were a couple of decisions. Scott Lindsay said in the penalty, Will Wright was pushed before he actually fouled the player. But yeah, those things happen, as we know. If only they had VAR, right? But they're still fifth, and they're only 3 points off the top still. So it's not. It wasn't. I don't think it's a disastrous defeat at Doncaster. But yeah, I think Lindsay will be disappointed by the result.
Well, yeah, Doncaster, as I said, after the win against Sutton was very disappointing. As you mentioned, Scott Lindsay made the decision to drop Ben Gladwin, Danilo Orsi and Dion Conroy for the game up in Yorkshire with the trio not even travelling. How surprised were you by Lindsay's decision? And is it with the benefit of hindsight that we can probably say that was a bit of a mistake?
From the players' point of view, I bet they were delighted not having to go to Doncaster on a Tuesday night. But yeah, I was surprised when I saw it, but now, sort of on reflection, Lindsay is a smart operator. He knows what he's doing, and they've got Wrexham at home on Saturday, and he probably looked at the two fixtures. They've got they've got Saturday, Tuesdays for the next few weeks now, so he's got to manage his squad, and he probably looked at that game and then looked at Wrexham and thought, right, Wrexham's the game we've got more chance of actually winning. So if we can get a result at Doncaster with a slightly weakened side, great. But I'd rather have my full side for Wrexham on Saturday, which is going to be an interesting game. We'll come on to some stats of those in a minute. But I think, and it sort of reflects, and I saw a fan put this on social media, which I thought was very interesting. Towards the end of last season, it was over the Easter weekend. They played Bradford on the Friday, drew 0-0 at home. Then they had Barrow away, and then they had Tranmere at home straight afterwards. And I think at that time, he made loads of changes for the Barrow game and then had his strongest side for Tranmere. And it was again thinking, we've got more chance of getting a really good result against Tranmere than we have at Barrow. So we don't risk any of the sort of more experienced, bigger players, or looking at them like the Gladwin and Conroy, who have had some injuries recently in Crawley Town. I think he just thought, this is we've got a much better chance of beating Wrexham than we have Doncaster away. So let's focus it all on that. Don't even risk them taking. I mean, I was surprised they weren't even there for the bench. Because they could have made a difference in that second half when they were chasing the game a little bit. But so a little bit of it. I wouldn't call it a mistake, but yeah, it was I thought it was odd, but looking back at it now, you start to see how Scott Lindsay thinks when it comes to when he's got games on a Tuesday and a Saturday. So it's quite interesting.
You mentioned an upcoming game this Saturday. Of course, Crawley have got Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney and Wrexham in front of a sellout Broadfield Stadium crowd. How excited are the fans for this one, Mark, and how do you see this one going? I think we've both agreed that a 0-0 is probably highly unlikely in this one.
Yeah, it's going to be. It is a sellout crowd. The fans are really excited by it. I've seen loads of people paying for tickets, but there are no tickets available. There's, I mean, the capacity at Crawley is 6,100 and something, I think, and it's going to be mostly filled Saturday. Wrexham sold their quota quite quickly, so it's going to be absolutely rocking on Saturday. I mean, they had 3,500 there last week as well for the Sutton game, and it was a great atmosphere. So it's going to be great. But yeah, like you say, it's weirdly Wrexham drew 0-0 on I think it was away at Walsall on Tuesday night. But I had a quick look at the stats, and between them. So Crawley have scored in the games involving Crawley. There's been 39 goals in 11 games, and Wrexham 46 goals. So in all games, there's an average of 3.8 goals a game involving Crawley and Wrexham.
Full draw.
It's going to be. I think there's going to be goals both ends. I mean, we say it now. It's going to be 0-0 in it, but I mean, it's crazy. Crawley are 5th, and they've got a goal difference of +1. Wrexham are 9th, and they've got a goal difference of 0. It's just crazy. So we've got two teams who can score, and we've got two teams who can concede. So it's going to be really good and really interesting. Wrexham, you've got the likes of Stephen Fletcher, Ollie Palmer coming back to Crawley, and that. I don't think the stars are going to be there, but I know the Welcome to Wrexham cameras are going to be at the Broadfield Stadium on Saturday. Look out for Crawley in Series 3 of Welcome to Wrexham.
More importantly, look out for Mark Dunford in Series 3. I think that's what the fans want to see. Moving swiftly over to Steve Bone Prediction Corner. Very quickly, we'll rattle through these. Marseille v Brighton tonight. Derren, how do you see that one going?
I'm going to go optimistic 2-2. I worry for Brighton a bit tonight. I just don't think they're at it at the moment, and I think a draw would be a very good result for them tonight.
Frankie, how do you see it going?
Yeah, like Derren, I'm quite worried for Brighton at the moment. I also have realised there's no point predicting Brighton to lose by a small goal line, because if they lose quite dramatically. So I'm going to go for 4-1 Marseille.
Cool, blimey. Mark, do you
Wow.
see it going that well? Blimey.
Yeah, I mean, Brighton could have done with playing Ajax right now, couldn't they?
Yes.
Just a sort of thing. So Marseille's a tough one, but I'm going to go with Derren. I think Steve Bone emailed me and you, Matt, as well, to say that he thinks it's going to be 2-2 as well. So I'm going 2-2.
Not mentioned this, but this Saturday sees Brighton play Liverpool at the Amex. Mark, how do you see that one going for the Seagulls?
I think if it was before the Europa League campaign, I think I would have predicted a Brighton win. But as we've seen how it's gone, I think I'm going to go for a draw again. I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw in this one as well. I think there'll be goals in it, but it'll be a tough one because Liverpool are looking quite good at the moment.
Frankie, what about yourself? How do you see that one going?
Yeah, so Brighton seems to be playing better against the big six teams at the moment. So I'm still going to stick with that. I also think playing at home will help them. I don't think Liverpool, they had their worst performance at the Amex, both in the FA Cup and in the Premier League last season. So I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw in that game.
And Derren, what about yourself?
Yeah, I think Brighton are not in a good shape, and I think it's Thursday, and then they play Liverpool on the Sunday, and I think it's going to be. I think Liverpool are going to turn them over. I think 2-0 Liverpool. Yeah.
Cool, blimey. Should we be worried about Brighton then, chaps?
I think they're in a wobbly moment at the moment. So
they are indeed.
Yeah, it's. I think they'll come through it, but I just think they're just not in a good place at the moment.
Yeah.
As mentioned as well, Saturday, Crawley Wrexham. Mark, are we sticking for a 4-4 draw?
No, I'm going to go 4-2 Crawley.
Oof, Derren, how do you see that one going?
Wrexham one. I'm going to go 3-2 to Crawley for that one.
And finally, Frankie.
I'm going to be really boring and go for, why not? I'm going to go for 0-0 and see what happens.
Crawley Town also plays Sutton United in the EFL Trophy on Tuesday, but if you care about that, you need your head checked. You can catch up with all the latest sports news, everything we've had talked about today at sussexworld.co.uk/sport. Thank you very much for joining us this week, chaps. Frankie, I'm going to embarrass you a little bit. It's your last podcast with us today. Thank you very much for all your contributions. You've been a great asset to this podcast. Frankie. All the best in your future endeavours. Thank you very much. You can catch up with me, Mark, and Derren next week. Frankie will probably enjoying a nice week off. So, thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you all soon.